Hello pilots, welcome to another video. Did you miss me? Well, it's been a while since I last showed up. I read every single one of your messages asking about where I've been or for me to come back. Sometimes you just need to take an extended vacation from the chaos that is War Thunder, right? Still, I really appreciate the kindness you've shown me. Thank you for your patience. Now, without further ado, let's get to the point and talk about the Viper Zero. This is a very peculiar aircraft that's going to appeal to a very specific niche of people, dogfight enthusiasts. That's because this plane has both limitations and benefits that a regular F-16 doesn't. In short, you don't have a radar helmet sight and you don't have effective medium-range missiles. Basically, you're limited to 4 IR missiles and 4 AAM-4s, which is this little guy's Fox 3. On the bright side, you've got an excellent eye for patrolling the skies, an ASA radar with solid coverage, and some pretty sweet maneuverability and defensive capabilities. The fact that you're a bit slower than a Block 50 or Block 40 makes it even more frustrating to be a carrier of AAM-4s because it almost completely kills your chances of pulling off a decent BVR, whether it's at the start, middle, or end of the match. So, creating situations where you can engage the enemy as close as possible becomes extremely important. When I was mastering this plane, I realized that even those situations where you see a target flying straight at 20 or even 15 kilometers, which would be an easy kill even with a Darby or a Mica, just aren't with this platform. Over time, you learn to ignore those BVR situations so you can preserve your arsenal and keep your combat capability intact. This first encounter with the Gripen in this video really showcased the soul of the aircraft. You're strong in dogfights, but the lack of an HMD, which can't be compensated for even with an advanced radar, will cost you a lot of kills. Plus, you're a slow target, so for a good part of the match you're limited to being a distraction or a support aircraft. You'll take passive and defensive routes, praying for an opportunity to become a playmaker in the midfield, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. The mid-game is unfolding, and eventually the match will turn into chaos. That's where I'll have the best chances to frag. After 2 minutes of flying, I got my first kill. The remaining enemies are fighting a bit farther away because they went after those guys who love to spam missiles at the start of the match and land at the first airfield. Well, fair enough, they're doing their thing and I'm doing mine. I'll reposition and get ready for what's coming next. They're all Rafales, and this could be much harder for me. Like I said, the Viper Zero is an opportunistic plane, and here's my chance. I'm trying to give the best lead possible for the missiles to avoid any TKs. While I was coming over to support the Allies who were rearming, I got a ton of pings from the other airfield. All Rafales too, so it's still not time to rest. And of course, as always, I try to get the best positioning possible since, with this plane, you can never dive headfirst into a fight. Everything has to be double-checked and carefully thought out. Before launching, I also let the target get as close as possible. For the AAM-4, every meter matters. Now I can see the contrail of a Rafale coming in high. I know there's also one behind me, so I choose to maintain a perpendicular route to both threats. This missile has a pretty low chance of taking down the target. I was just forced to trade missiles with the guy up high. That's going to buy me some time. Enough time to engage the Rafale that's already closer without him getting help from his ally. Of course, the unexpected happens. After all, this is War Thunder. If I actually needed the missile to connect, it wouldn't have. That wraps up the first match. It might seem like just 5 kills, but if I'm not mistaken, they were all Rafaels. So, let's move on to the next one. As I said, the secret to this plane is choosing carefully how you're going to fly at the start. And this is the boring part that nobody, or almost nobody, really wants to learn. This isn't like a flanker, a Eurofighter, or a Rafale, where you can just fly wherever you want and it'll work out. In this specific positioning, I had to discipline myself to be patient and observant for a long time before I could take the initiative to attack. Stick with me until that happens. And the first launch was already picked up by my precious warning system. Even though it's inaccurate sometimes, trust me, you don't want to find out when it's wrong. So I immediately make a left turn to start draining the energy of the missiles supposedly coming my way. A good part of our game is going to play out like this for now. Bluffs and more bluffs. They bluff and I bluff right back. Notice how, as soon as I lock onto the F-15, it immediately goes cold on me. If I had fired a missile at it, that would have been one less missile and no frag to add to my score. This is the kind of situation where you need to learn to save your ammo. I know it's tempting to fire, but hey, that's just how life is. Look at how the ideal situation formed right in front of me. I need to be ready to respond to this kind of scenario almost immediately to increase the chances of a happy ending. If you're the kind of player who's slow to react, you're going to lose a lot of matches by not recognizing situations like this. They're all showing up in an ideal aspect for me, so it's time to enjoy the feast. See that? With patience, a plane like this can shine too. Now let me hunt down their last aircraft. Well, it turned out the final duel was between an F-15 and a Typhoon, both armed with C-5s. My only chance to frag was to get up close. It didn't work out this time, but no risk, no reward. Sometimes it's not so obvious how much an aircraft's performance can affect the final outcome of your matches, but this one in particular is a great example. A mistake that seemed irrelevant ended up costing me way too much, and that's exactly why I wanted to share this clip with you. At the start, everything's still calm. I get my first frag after some solid initial positioning and keep taking advantage of that up to a certain point. And this is the exact point where I messed up. I overestimated my team's performance and decided not to care about the low altitude and the significant performance loss I was experiencing. I wanted to keep the aggression on the opponents. Because of that, at some point, I'll end up stuck in this quadrant, and it's going to cost me my life. I tried to position myself as best as I can. I had already noticed someone coming in really high, but it's too late to make the right call against it. Here you can also see how precise you need to be with your limited Fox 3 launches. If I had fired this missile 2 or even 1 second earlier than I did, that Jeff might have gotten away alive, and the situation would have been even worse. The end is near. I'm under the pressure of 2 enemies who are very well positioned, and I don't have a single Fox 3 left. All I can do is try to extend the situation and survive, hoping for an opportunity to show up. Of course, despite all the mistakes I made, I could have countered each one to create a world where I might have survived. But the one thing I have no control over is RNG, gentlemen. Don't believe in the placebo of multipathing anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. What I can say about the F-2 is that it's an extremely meritocratic plane. Do what it asks of you, and you'll be happy and rewarded. But if you push past its limits, you'll be severely punished. That's why I said this is a niche aircraft. Veterans will be extremely happy flying it. They know how to be patient and disciplined when it comes to a doctrine or limitation. Now, if you're more of a casual player, or this is just a convenient pastime for you, you might struggle a lot flying this plane. So, I hope my advice helps you out. And as usual, I dedicate this last match to the observers. Observe the simplicity of this match and how everything works in a unique way for this plane. See you soon. Well, gentlemen, that's all from me for today. I hope you enjoyed the content. Leave a comment about what you think of all this. Your feedback is super important to me. The video ends, but the chat lives on. Thanks for supporting my work. Karma out.